I think there's still a lot of layers we can be diving into. In fact, sort of feel that if we really appreciated how different and distinct group and team coaching is from one-on-one, we wouldn't even be having a conversation around AI and coaching, because really it is about the human experience. It is
Oh,
about the deep levels of connectivity that plays out day after day, hour after hour, whether you're in a Zoom room, a Teams room, a physical room, a hybrid room, which really defines the deep levels of peer-to-peer connectivity. And those are the
yeah.
bridges that are going to be the bridges, I feel, of the future.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Britton, and welcome to the Coaching Money Podcast. I've been on a mission for the last 20 years to expand the coaching conversation to many. Along with my co-host, Ivana Valley, we're going to be exploring coaching as it relates to conversations, connection, and change in both personal and professional settings. Coaching Money is about creating empowering and thought-provoking spaces for conversation which strengthen relationships and enhance results. Throughout the Coaching Money podcast, we'll share tools, practices, and approaches to support you in your conversations, one dialogue at a time.
So we're back today with an episode we're titling Shifts, Pivots, and Recalibration. I don't take it lightly that it's almost 6 years to the day when the world turned, and I think we're in another moment of significant change where humanity is having to grapple with impossibilities and dichotomies. We wanted to sit down as we start coming to the end of season 2, not quite the end, but almost the end, to really look at what is happening. We're recording this episode in early March of 2026. And like the title, there are a lot of shifts happening, a lot of pivots, and some recalibration. I want you to think about where your work is right now, where your conversations are right now, and what you're hearing in your ecosystem. My guess is that your coaching clients are grappling with a lot of things, the impossibilities, the incomprehensibles. And while we don't profess to have any answers, I think we want to hold the space for the conversation, just like we do in any coaching conversation. So, with that, I want to welcome you back, Ivana. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Jen. And it's so great to be here with you. And your first comment around it was 6 years ago. I looked at the day, and for me, it was the first day of a national shutdown in Italy.
Wow.
The world, the country through the pandemic shut down. As many of you remember, Italy was hit and hit hard. And so when I think about that moment and even what's unfolded through that experience and beyond, and where I sit today, it's a different screen, but in many ways very similar. I think for me as an individual, but also for us as humans and for us as a world. And even us as an industry, there's a lot of uncertainty. So whether you are wearing your hat as human, whether you're wearing your hat as coach, entrepreneur, business leader, group coach, team coach, facilitator, whatever, however you want to call it, like this is where we are today. And I think that's why I think this episode, my hope is that it's going to bring some calm your nervous system down, maybe a little bit, give you some ideas, and also know that we're all human and we're all in this together.
Yeah.
So these are just
Yeah.
ideas.
Well, I've been saying a lot, it's been a year. It's been a year between AI,
Yeah.
geopolitical ramblings, economics, and of course, a real seismic shift that I think a lot of coaches are feeling right now. And we felt that it was important to just address it because I don't think people are being very upfront about just the shifts and the dramatic changes that a lot of coaches have seen. In fact, couple weeks ago, I heard day after day after day in the span of a week, coaches talking about how more than 50% of their income had just evaporated overnight, and that the platforms they were working for just no longer had work. I've been starting to write a lot about how I do feel that group and team coaching will continue as a very important modality, especially against the backdrop of a rise of AI coaching. But like any innovation, I think people are saying, "Oh, I want to try this out. Let's see how it works." And certainly for me, we will never replace the human. There may be a place for what we would call in experience design language, triggers and hacks, which get people motivated for the short term, but that is not transformational experiences. And so I think we need to really, part of doing this episode today on shifts, pivots, and recalibration, part of recalibration is also discernment and looking at what is important and what is your work, right? Is our work as coaches just to do a checkbox, or is it really to create deep levels of connectivity, of connection with self, of connection with others, of connection to the human capacities? And that's my belief. And I think we are certainly, without stepping over it, in a moment in time that is going to call people forward. Our ability to navigate uncertainty, our ability to navigate dichotomies, our ability to work across difference. And many of these things have been assaulted. I'll use that term. They've been assaulted in the last year or two. And so it's interesting for me to see, even on a global order level, just how messaging and stances are playing out. And coming back to, we are all human all over the world. So with that, what is coming up for you when you think pivots, shifts, and recalibration?
Yeah, I want to circle back on something you were saying and just share my thoughts on it around this thing of AI, right? And I love what you said. Yeah, it can be a resource. Like I'm using my words for like a hack. There's a time and place for it. And I say that because I'm a coach, but I'm also a business owner. And so I need to discern how it can be used in support of me, not to replace me. As you said, like there's the human side of it. And when I think human, I think nervous system. I think like that. I think I go back to the core competencies, like presence. Presence is listening, right? But it's also, it's in our energy. How are we showing up for these polls? Are we allowing ourselves, because we're all dysregulated, we're all dealing with stuff, whether it be in our personal lives, our business, our families, the geopolitical, all of that. So as coaches, I just think, yeah, we can say that AI is and it is, and it can be a resource, but also how are we supporting ourselves and regulating ourselves so we can be with what is in the conversation, so we can be listening, right?
Yes.
Now more than ever, people want to feel like they're being heard, they're being seen. They don't want to be told, do this, as much as they think they do. That's not the space. That's not our stance as coaches. And I work with AI. It'll say to me, as your coach, but I discern that, yes, as a coach on an intellectual level, but from a somatic level, from a nervous system level, hard to be. And so
That's
for
so
me,
interesting. I think I'd be terrified if my AI said, as your coach. I'd say, you're not my coach. But, this points to, what are we listening to as well? What are we paying attention to? And what is the story we're creating for ourselves? Because we always, I do feel, and this is why I was so attracted to coaching 22 years ago, 23 years ago now almost, is what are we paying attention to? There's a lot of science behind intentionality in terms of attention, focus. And I think, as someone who has spent her career working in moments and arenas of drastic and dramatic changes and shifts, I just want to use part of this episode to also talk about, what does it mean to coach through chaos, right? It was intentional that I did my second TED Talk on coaching teams through chaos. It's why we've created a lot of our intellectual property here at Potentials Realized, to help people cut through the noise, whether the chaos is because of external factors of any variety, or whether the chaos is because of team dysfunction, right? It's a continuum. Dysfunction is dysfunction. And how do we navigate around that? And so I would assert that as dramatic as things are with potential scenarios, we also need to remember that we can only meet the moment now. If we get stuck in the what if, that's not going to be in service of anyone. So I think it once again brings us back to the importance of presence, of being present with the moment and trusting, back to that word trusting in your capability, trusting in your relational abilities so that you can navigate whatever is on the horizon.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so, so important that we can show up and trust that whether we need a tool, whether we need to slow things down, whether we need to offer a perspective neutrally, whatever that is. And undertone, just for those listening, I'm actually touching on the range of the superpowers without naming the superpowers,
I
right?
was going to say, it sounds a bit like the superpowers.
Yeah, totally. And the reason why I said that afterwards is it's not only one. And I don't know if it's because I'm really doing my work, my own personal work and my own professional work, and the work that I do working with people, not only developing confidence and skill in a language, but doing in a way that they can be present, whether they're traveling or whether they're at the podium doing a talk, so they can actually connect with people. So all that really means is, how are we regulating? Because I think a lot of, and I'm really getting clear on this, is as coaches, we're here to co-regulate. We're here to actually support our clients to come from a regulated nervous system. And that requires us. And when we are both there, I was listening to an ICF call, community of practice call with Marcia Reynolds. It was brilliant. She really touches in a lot on the neuroscience. So it's kind of opening my mind on this. But when we come from then, that's how we can co-create.
Yeah.
We co-create from a co-regulation. And the reason why I say this is, when you touched on, Jen, the chaos, I think what you're saying and what I'm adding to that, these are pieces that really support a powerful conversation amongst a system of a team, a group, the kitchen table, or one-on-one, virtually or in person.
Yeah. And I would assert, and again, this is part of the shifts, the pivots, the recalibration, as the world continues to change, what is needed, right? And I would say it's even beyond just a conversation, right? This is where I think it is the experience. It is really going even deeper into helping people create the sustainable change. And I know one thing you said to me was that you were missing our writing sprints.
Yeah.
And I think our writing sprint process is an intensive deep dive. It is an experience. It's a moment for people to come and dive deeply, even if it's just for an hour, to work on their creative projects. And that's not just conversation, it's also action. And so how are we creating experiences for our clients and for ourselves? Like, if we, to your point, if we're not regulated, is it possible to, here's maybe the frame. If we're not regulated, what are we doing in terms of regulation to the relationship, that joint relationship? It's not going to be grounded. It may not be even as capable of holding the potential of what is possible. So again, I think there's layers. There's layers for us. There's layers for clients, but there's also layers of what are the spaces that you're creating. And that to me is the piece I think we do have some control over. How do we shift what our work looks like? How do we challenge ourselves to really be thinking about what could these conversations look like as well, and co-create those with clients?
Well, and you know, you use the language, I think you said experience design, right?
Yep, because that's where
That
my work has been taking me for a
yeah,
couple of years now, right? It's related to coaching, but it's not
absolutely.
coaching. So,
But I think when I hear experience design from a coaching, you know, I think about that container. If we want to use coaching language, what's the container we're
mhm,
creating
yeah,
to support people in showing up, in
yeah,
supporting people to go, wow, this, whatever this is, we call it group coaching, we call it team coaching, we call it a workshop, whatever we want to call it.
mhm,
This is different.
yeah,
This, wow. And that doesn't mean that the coach or the lead facilitator is performing. It actually means the wow is I actually can show like your writing sprints, right? We were in community. We all have our own project, but I was within the context of the container, within the context of the experience, I was held and I was able to actually do my own processing, do my own writing, do my own work. And it didn't have
mhm,
to be a constant roundtable of talk,
no,
which we sometimes think as coaches, as group coaches, team coaches, that's what it is. And it's not.
yeah, yeah,
People get that all day, every day. So when I
mhm,
hear experience design and from what I've learned from you and what I integrate in my own work, how can I create a space, a container, an experience that people can arrive, people can be, that people can feel seen, heard, and validated, but
yeah,
also walk away having something shifted, some insight, some momentum to take beyond the hour, the 90 minutes, or however long. And that is in the design, but it's
yes.
also in our presence. It's also in how we show up and how loose we stay to what is in the room.
Yeah. And that is the piece that will never be replaced by AI, right? I think,
Exactly.
it is the fabric of the experience, and it is the sensory. If we go to
Yeah.
sensation, right? It's the sensory of how people feel, whether it is a 1 hour writing sprint, whether it is what we've been doing this last few months with the
Yeah.
26 for 26,
Yeah.
whether it is next week's business reset challenge. But there's a piece around community as well,
Right.
because when we are together, we know that we're not alone. Back to something I found myself saying so much 6 years ago of like, no person is an island. I suspect, and this is just a projection based on, what was I paid to do for many years, was what do the trends say? If we do see things like rising oil prices, I think we might be back into an era of remote work. Maybe that's not a bad thing for, autonomy. I think people have really been struggling this last year or two,
Yeah.
in very different contexts around being told what to do and having a lot of their choice removed. So I think paradigm shifts, right? Something to be noticing. And, do we embrace them? Do we not embrace them? What's important?
Well, and I think to your point, whether it be because of oil prices or what you're hearing amongst your peers and
Mhm.
conversations, it's an invitation for us, for you to really go, hold on, like what is it? What's here that I need to give some thought to? Like, what is that pivot? Or how am I seeing the situation that's actually holding myself and the people in this context back? I love this line and it's like what got you here is not going to get you there.
Completely. And I think that is the shift, right? And that is probably the quantum leap. What is the quantum leap that's needed to really shift things? And this is where, it's probably not, it's going to be a quantum leap. It's not going to be the same path,
No.
which is difficult, right? Like, I think when things change, also, there's a lot of energy around, oh, I wish it could be this way. Yes. And sometimes we need to break things in order to move forward. And it is, to me, very interesting thinking about what do we choose to let go of and where is the resistance in change
Mhm.
as well.
Yep.
I'm thinking a lot these days of just the last 20 years of group coaching and as every week I'm sort of going back into the annals to look at like what is something, and just thinking though how today group coaching is so widely embraced, and I think people would be so shocked to hear the resistance that group coaching really did face in the knots,
Mhm.
in the early years. And it is now almost like, oh, of course, like, of course, you just offer groups. And I think there's still layers. I think there's still a lot of layers we can be diving into. In fact, sort of feel that if we really appreciated how different and distinct group and team coaching is from one-on-one, we wouldn't even be having a conversation around AI and coaching, because really it is about the human experience. It is
Oh,
about the deep levels of connectivity that plays out day after day, hour after hour, whether you're in a Zoom room, a Teams room, a physical room, a hybrid room, which really defines the deep levels of peer-to-peer connectivity. And those are the
yeah.
bridges that are going to be the bridges, I feel, of the future. Those are the bridges that will create whatever is next, whether things remain the same and this is just a little blip, or whether, like we saw
Yeah.
6 years ago, people really had to radically transform. And what's interesting now is if we look at, and you could listen to me probably speaking in 2020 over at the Remote Pathways podcast.
Mhm.
I was very hopeful that paradigm shift to remote work would remain for lots of reasons.
Yeah.
The powers that be in certain business contexts, in
Yeah.
geopolitical contexts, wanted people back in the office, didn't want people to innovate and be creative and be independent.
Mhm.
Um, and just think of the friction. Like, where has the friction been for the last year, 2 years? That's totally not even on the table right now. So it's going to be interesting. Again, I think just back to capacity. What do we have the capacity for? What is our agency? And
Mhm.
what are we hopeful for? Helping people go back to vision. It's going to be an important task. It's going to be a hard task though. But having a vision of what is next on an individual and a collective level will be an important thing to be looking at.
Yeah, and even if I think about myself and vision, to me, that's overwhelming right now, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And to be aware of that, again, I just think about vision is so fundamental, and we gotta meet people where they are.
Yeah.
And I just think, wow, like, even the conversations that I'm having, a lot of people think because they're seasoned facilitators or trainers and they've done one-on-one, or on the other side, I've done so much one-on-one. It is a skill. It is a skill to be a group and team coach. And I just don't like, it's not for everyone.
Mhm.
And it can be absolutely powerfully transformational. I've been a participant and have had that experience. And it does take a paradigm shift as a coach from your facilitator trainer hat, from your one-on-one coach hat. This is not about you as a coach. When you go into group coaching, I'll speak more to group coaching because I don't do team coaching, but with the group coaching standpoint, it's not about you. It's not. And for
Mhm.
many, that is the paradigm shift. It's like, wow, like you're back at wow, I am the student as a new one-on-one coach. And like in many ways, you're going back to that and you're dancing those dynamics. Yeah, you need to know group dynamics. Yes, a facilitator, in some ways, I think being a seasoned facilitator supports you in a group as a group coach. But in other ways, I think it can hurt you if you're not aware, if you're not present, if you're not actually intentional around where you are in that continuum and at what time. And I
Mhm.
think that's where that experience design comes in, that facet comes in. But I think a lot of it is you got to leave your ego at the door.
I was just going to say it's all about the ego, right? And isn't that interesting, because that is of the most human base, and really where coaches get stuck,
Mhm.
MCCs especially, and I'm not picking on anyone, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying that the more people feel that they are an expert in coaching, the more challenging they're going to find group coaching. And I would say team coaching, although team coaching, you can come out of the coaching stance and move to training.
Yeah.
So a lot of, I think, very high ego executive coaches have found a lot of comfort in team coaching because there is a power. But as a group coach, you're in the mix. You need to be humble. Humility is not
Yeah.
a 2026 skill. We're not seeing it modeled anywhere in the world,
No.
really.
No.
But it is a core capacity for group coaches.
Yeah.
The ability to sense and work with a group to sensate, to create meaning is a deeply human skill.
Mm-hmm.
And that is at the heart, once again, of coaching, of group coaching in a peer relationship.
Yeah.
I hope that people listening today, we've touched on a lot of different themes, from AI to human capacity, from group and team systems to paradigm shifts, to innovation, to regulation, to relationships and connectivity. There's just a lot in this space. And for some, it might be familiar terrain, but my guess is whether it's the pace, the volume, the magnitude, it can feel really overwhelming. And so finding processes, you talked about missing the writing sprints. And I think that is a process. It's a practice, right? It's a consistency of showing up time and time again. And if there's one thing that I learned in the first 13, 15 years of my career, navigating uncertainty every day and rapidly changing economies and rapidly changing political systems, was the importance of consistency.
Mm-hmm.
And think back to maybe what you did 6 years ago during the early days of the pandemic. What were the routines? What were the practices? What were the habits that you started building? And that can create grounding. It can create just a sense of normalcy in a world where things aren't normal every
Mm-hmm.
day. So again, I think we wanted to do something that was really, one, addressing the major shifts. I do feel that in today's era, organizations are still investing in the team as a unit. They're still investing in the group. They are experimenting with AI, but I think part of our role also is to help people discern, when is AI appropriate and when do you still need the human connection. It is about capacity, and I think people will be hearing a lot more about capacity in my writing, because some of the coaching and change book is sort of morphing into capacity work, which is interesting. And it makes sense, right? The change of today is not the change of last year. So how do we build that ability in everyone, not just leaders, but in the ability to continue to flex, flow, so that you can scale, which is, of course, a flow, flex, scale, bringing a lot of joy for those. Maybe if you haven't heard or checked it out, the website's going to be live soon. It's taken longer, like anything takes longer in today's world, but we will continue to be here as well to hold those spaces for coaches that want to expand their range. I really hope people are going to continue to enjoy our superpower work as well, because it is about how you're showing up and your presence.
Yeah.
So what are you leaving this conversation with, Ivana?
I'm leaving this conversation with some nuggets, really some nuggets around intentionality and where do I want to show up? And some of that is a balance of my strengths, my passions, what I can do to contribute in service of. Even this conversation has validated a little bit about my shift, my flex,
Yeah.
how I've had to flex to support both my own livelihood and also support the community where I live. And so the essence of my work has remained the same, but it looks different. And that's where I'm at. And I leave that with you. Where are you right now And where do you see opportunity to flex, to flow, so you can scale, so you can maybe diversify your income stream or your entry into an organization? Is it by adding group coaching, or maybe you're already doing group coaching and you think maybe I need to actually do team coaching, to add more. So there's that piece. There's the piece again, really around that regulated nervous system. I think that is a big part of capacity.
Yes.
Are
it
we
is.
actually putting oxygen on our own mouths so we can come back and continue to have momentum? And then the last piece I would say is I'm really leaving this conversation around the AI piece. Like, how do I use AI as a way to support me in articulating all that I have from human connection, more than assume that AI knows what humans want? So it's that discernment of, how do I use it as my ally, not my Achilles heel?
Yeah. Well, it's another potential partner in the
It
mix.
totally is. It's another tool. It's another partner. Absolutely.
Well, what I'm noticing, and we didn't spend a lot of time, but I'm hoping listeners are hearing this theme around business, right? Like, I think, like any moment, there's opportunity, and that's this week's perspective on it. But just you pointed to it, and one of the things that you'll be able to check out on sort of in an evergreen basis is the upcoming business reset challenge that we'll host live next week. And I'm looking forward to, because I want to challenge coaches. What are you offering? I always like to shout out Andrea Lee's book, Multiple Streams of Coaching Income, which when I came into the coaching industry in 2004, I think it came out in 2005. And I remember listening to Andrea speak thinking, this is such a wise businesswoman. And really, that invitation to think about multiple streams of coaching income was probably what got this business through the 08, 09 economic downturn. And I don't know how many times I've been told, just do one thing, just serve one client. Well, we don't. And we never have, and we never will, right? Because we have 3 lines of business. We have more than 3 lines of business now after 20 years. But it really is about following where your clients are directing you. If you really sit back and listen, and all of the chaos that's happening right now, there's very clear through lines. And our ability to regulate, to get grounded so that we can be strategic in times of great turmoil is really important, because that will help us see the distance. That is the spiral lighthouse. And actually, the spiral lighthouse will be showing up next week in the challenge. I hope that for those of you that are interested, join us. We're going to be hosting it on the Conversation Sparker Zone. Back to Mighty Networks. Mighty Networks has asked us to actually be spotlighted. They're impressed with what we've done over the years. So we're going to be back in that ecosystem, and stay tuned, because you'll see a little bit of spotlight of potentials realized in the Conversation Sparker Zone. So I think things are continuing to move. If you look at the through line of movement, positive movement, you can see it. But I'll go back to that question. What are you paying attention to?
What are you paying attention to?
So with that, everyone, thanks for joining us. I think this is episode 49. We're going to be winding down as season 2 soon. So stay tuned for that. But always a pleasure. We look forward to your comments, thoughts, likes, shares. And as always, please subscribe so that you can stay abreast of the podcast. All right. Ivana, final words?
What are you paying attention to?
Very good question. What are you paying attention to?
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Be well. And thanks again for joining us. Take care.
Yeah.